welcome each and every one of you to this very special conversation that we're having with Julia Pimsleur. She is the founder and CEO of the $1 Million Women Network. She is a best-selling author. She's a TEDx speaker, a scaling coach, a mindset expert focused on sales training, which is what she's talking to us about today. So we are really excited to be able to bring these expert insights to our community at the fourth floor, founder community, our executive community. So thank you everyone for being here. And of course, before we officially dive in and I hand the stage over to Julia, just a very brief, quick word about the fourth floor. For those of you that don't know, I think most of you do know, but we are a unique kind of marketplace. We are matching startups and companies to board-ready women. We're doing this in a trusted, efficient, and cost-effective way because we want to disrupt the things that aren't working with traditional board search process. And we want to overcome those systemic barriers that have kept women out of the board candidate pipeline. And we're doing a very similar thing in our private backroom investment club, where we are trying to overcome those systemic barriers that have kept women from writing checks and kept women from getting funded, because all of those three things are connected. So if you are listening here and you are not part of the fourth floor already, please consider joining us. If you are a founder of a company, then come to us. We'll help you find skilled expert advisors, directors, observers, other talent that you need, and connect you to investors, where it can be a source of funding and talent for you. If you are interested yourself personally in advancing a for-profit board career or possibly starting to invest, please join us. And you can do those things. So we have many, right now we have close to 700 different board and board adjacent, like advisory board opportunities in our board marketplace. And we have around 100 investment opportunities. And there's also 21 women-led venture funds. So lots going on. So if you're listening and you're not part of us, consider joining. We will put into the chat a link that takes you to our weekly platform tour. We do them every Monday at noon Eastern Standard Time. That's a great way to just pop in, meet some other people, and really get a hands-on, like, okay, this is what the fourth floor is about, and figure out if it makes sense for you. So that's it, done with the pitch. Let's get to the point of today. So, the whole point of today really is Julia Pimsleur. So I am thrilled to welcome you to the spotlight. So come join me. I know I mentioned a little bit about your background and all the amazing things you have done. I also just want to mention, I'm sure you'll talk about this more, but how Julia has in fact helped thousands of women business owners get to 1 million in revenue faster. $1 Million Women is committed to closing that gender economic gap, just like we are, by helping 1 million women reach 1 million in revenue, which is just a phenomenal, fantastic goal, and one we entirely support. Also, I know there is a nonprofit arm, which maybe you'll speak about a little bit. You award scholarships to women of color entrepreneurs who are paying themselves less than $50,000 a year, who want to get to 1 million in revenue. So all of this is amazing. Just wanted to make sure I gave what you're doing full credit. And now at this point, let me turn the stage over to you, Julia.
Thank you, Breen. It's so wonderful to be here. We love our partnership with the fourth floor, soon to be the fourth effect. And, we are truly all tackling closing the economic gender gap together. We're helping more women make more money. You are helping more women get on boards. We absolutely love, being partners with you and finding ways to collaborate like this. Thank you all for showing up today. Very excited to be teaching about sales. This is one of my favorite topics. Scaling and sales and mindset are sort of my three lanes, and being the mom of two boys, but I don't think we're going to get into that today. So yes, we're super excited to spend this little 30 minutes together. What my promise to you is that we're going to keep this fun and keep it moving, and you will learn something today that can make you another $100,000 in your business. So I want you to be on the listen for what that is. And we're going to ask you at the end what that might be. I have a little PowerPoint to share, but before we get into that, and thank you for the beautiful introduction, that shaves 5 minutes off my talk, Breen, so nicely done. Can you please put in the chat if you've had sales training? So either yes, I've had some sales training, or not yet, because you're going to get some sales training today. So it's either yes or not yet. And Rachel, my co-pilot, she is our amazing COO of $1 Million Women. And maybe you could each just take 1 minute also to just chat to Rachel in the chat. Just go to where it says everyone, drop down and find Rachel Volmer, Volmer, and just say hi, because she'll have some things to share with you later, some links and things. And I just want to make sure you're in contact with her. So Rachel, what have we got? A lot of yeses?
It's pretty mixed, actually. A lot of not yets, but a lot of maybe not yet, actually, is probably a more common answer.
All right, super. Well, that makes me happy, because part of why I started teaching sales is that I found most women want to grow their business. We're $1 million women. So of course, women who come to us are eager to reach 7 and 8 figures. But then when I ask, have you had sales training? The answer is almost always no. And so I've started to see this as one of the biggest things holding us back from growing profitable, scalable businesses, because as I always like to say, you can't take the sale out of scale. If you want to scale up your business, you've got to master sales. And so I'm going to do a little screen share here so we can dive right in. So the reason I'm doing this as the psychology of sales is that I've noticed that women sometimes have some resistance to getting sales training. They think of sales as icky or out of integrity or pushy, or they're picturing this like used car salesman when they think of sales. Whereas most of us really love psychology. We read books by Adam Grant and Brene Brown, and we're interested in, why do people do what they do? In fact, who here has studied psychology in college? Did you take a class in psychology? Psych 101, one of my favorites. Okay, lots of hands going up. Julie, Sarah, awesome. So that's why I thought I would frame this in terms of what are the 5 top psychological secrets that you need to know if you want to be good at sales. I have been studying sales for about 6 years, maybe longer, probably longer if you include all the training I did while I was at my first company, but really I've been teaching it for about 6 years. And I think part of what makes it interesting is you're really trying to understand how another person works. How can you help guide them to work with you? Because it will be better for both of you. And that's what I'll be sharing today, is these top 5 secrets of the psychology of sales. So since we've mentioned the word psychology, what is your greatest fear? Let's go right into thinking about psychology. What's your greatest fear around sales while I move on to the next slide? Is it that you'll get rejected? Is it that when you talk about the pricing, you're going to, stammer or blow it or not say the right thing? Is it that when people have objections, you're not really sure how to get them over those objections and those tough questions? What is your greatest fear around sales? Please throw that in the chat while I get everything teed up here. What do we got, Rachel?
We have perceived as desperate, not getting the outreach right, not making a good first impression. Someone said all of the above, so everything you mentioned. Pricing too low, another one. Perceived as greedy, feels like a performance.
Yeah, that feels like a performance one is kind of the out of integrity one that I hear a lot from women, that it's almost like the bitter pill you need to swallow in order to get to the part you like, which is serving your clients and customers. All right, thank you for sharing all those. And that is what motivated me to start teaching more about sales. I come out of a product background. I grew a business called Little Pim, which was language teaching for young children. I grew that from a $30,000 investment into a multi-million-dollar business and sold it. And in the course of trying to scale up, I realized there was no way I was going to get out of this kind of $500,000 revenue ceiling I kept hitting without learning about sales. So that's where my sales training journey started. And I documented a lot of that in my first book, $1 Million Women, which tells the whole story of building Little Pim. That's the language teaching company that I've now sold. And then that also led to writing a book all about mindset for business owners called Go Big Now. And both of these have some of the principles that I'll be teaching today, but this is actually a brand new training. I've only been teaching this for a couple of months now, so this is hot off the presses and very excited to share it with you. I'm a bit of an accidental sales trainer. Really what gets me out of bed in the morning is how can we help more women make more money? $1 Million Women is set up to help 1 million women get to 1 million in revenues. We're doing that through a tech platform that we built called The Network, which is membership. And then we have courses and programs, which I'll get into another time so that we can keep moving. But you have Rachel's contact in the chat, and feel free to ask her any questions at any time during this. I also figure we're all pretty good multitaskers. If you guys want to post things in the chat, like, oh, I made that switch and it really helped me, you can learn things from each other as well during this training. So I have had a lot of sales training, as I mentioned, and sometimes people want to know, well, what was that training, in case you want to go further after this. I'm an NLP certified master practitioner. That's neuro-linguistic programming, used for rapid mindset changes. A lot of Go Big Now, my second book, talked about NLP and all its uses in sales and business and making big shifts in your life. Sandler's a very popular training. I did that one. I went through Clients on Demand by Russ Ruffino. I'm always reading books to get additional resources. Here are some of my favorites. Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference is one that had a big impact on me, $100 million offers, and some of you may have read these. So some of the tips you'll be getting today come straight out of these books. And I won't make a secret of the fact that I'm hoping today inspires you to continue your sales training. You're really just going to get a little taste. One could say enough to be dangerous in today's training. So I hope you'll get inspired to keep going on that journey. All right, let's go to secret number one. If you think about selling as something that you dread, that you're getting nervous before every call, you're bringing that negative energy and negative predictions to every single sales call. And some of you who wrote, I fear rejection, I fear talking about pricing, it's probably happening inadvertently. So the biggest thing you can do to help your sales, and this might be your $100,000 tip right here, is to change your mindset and your language around selling to think of it more as serving. You're serving your clients and customers to get on every call or go to every meeting, not asking, am I going to get the deal? Am I not going to get the deal? Am I going to win? Am I going to lose? That sets you up for being very nervous and anxious and not looking forward to it. But if you go into each call or meeting with, how can I serve this person at the highest level? How can I ask them great questions to help them unpack their problem and figure out what's wrong? And even if they don't hire me, they will come away having unpacked something that really helped them to get to the next level in their business. So this is what the top salespeople do. And I invite you, if you have a friend who's great at sales, or a salesperson, maybe that's their whole job, ask them, how do you think about getting on your calls with your clients and customers? And I suspect they will say, it's all about service, not all about how can I get this person to do something. And I'm curious, those of you who said yes earlier in the chat, how many of you have encountered this this framework, or already made that switch? Have you already made the switch from selling to serving? Because of all the 5, this is probably the most important. That's why I put it first. And I'll let Rachel keep an eye on what's going on there. There's always a tiny delay with that chat. So anything coming in yet?
Yes, someone made the switch. Sai,
Oh yeah, hi Sai.
Megan made the switch. Megan.
Would someone unmute and tell us what that did for them? Because I'm a sales trainer, so you're probably all like, well, sure, you think of it that way, but I would love to hear from someone who made that switch. Maybe just raise your virtual hand if you're willing to share. And Rachel, could you help with calling on someone? Because there are a lot of people, which is fantastic. I can't get through all the little thumbnails.
I don't see any hands up.
Oh, well, I'm going to vote for someone.
It's either Sai or Megan. Those are the 2 people that said
all right,
yes.
I'm going for Sai. Oh, good. Great. Sai, thank you for sharing. Am I going to unmute
Hi.
you? There we go. Hi, Sai.
I'm
How are
unmuted.
you?
Hi, so great to see you. I did make the switch, and it has been really helpful, and it has definitely kind of unearthed kind of that first layer of approaching people. It has taken me only so far, because as soon as there's like a little resistance, you think, oh, I'm not serving this person anymore because they're resisting, or there's friction along this, conversation. So that's my only caveat, but it has definitely helped approach the conversation. So it's getting me in the door much more easily without friction on my part.
I love hearing that. And so you're going into your sales calls and meetings, not like dreading them or like, oh, are they going to say no? Like you've felt that switch for yourself.
And curiosity about like figuring out how I can help. and starting that conversation.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you're right, that is the beginning. It's not the whole enchilada, right? Then you have to know how to overcome the objections and kind of have tools in your toolkit for when it doesn't all go super smoothly. So thank you so much, Sai. I appreciate it. Super. So you can see this is the number one thing to do. And if you only do this, that can make you another $100,000. But let's get to the other secrets. And I'll keep us moving, so I see it's already 12:17. We may not end at exactly 12:30. I might go just a few minutes late, but I want to make sure you guys get all these great tips. So the second one is people buy in order to move away from pain way more than they buy in order to access pleasure. And this is a psychology term you may have encountered. You can Google it later. You can Google any of these terms later, by the way. The first one's not Googleable, but many of these are. Loss aversion. Loss aversion is simply the psychological phenomenon that people are 2 times as likely to take action to move away from pain as they are to move towards pleasure. It's very counterintuitive, and you'll see a lot of people who are not trained in sales trying to sell like this. Look at this amazing product or service I have. You're going to love it. It's going to solve all your problems, yada, yada, yada. And that is all about moving towards pleasure. Like, let's say you have a resort in Turks and Caicos, and you want people to come to your resort. It's a high-end, beautiful resort and spa. So on your website, because everything I'm teaching you works in conversation, but it also filters through your website copy, your social media, your language in your emails. So on their website, they might say, when you come every day, we're going to give you a complimentary pina colada, and you're going to have rose petals sprinkled over your bed, and you're going to get a massage, and you're going to be on the beach. So that's all moving towards pleasure, right? Those are all wonderful things we'd like to have. Here's the only problem. Who's already seen 10 websites that say that, right? I go on vacation every year to the Caribbean or whatever. They all start to look alike. So the more successful sales tactic, and you can combine them, you don't have to do all one or the other, but people tend to not use this because they don't know about it, is to tap into loss aversion. So if people are more likely to take action to get away from pain, talk about the pain they want to get away from. So what about a website for a resort and spa that says, did you ever splurge on a restful vacation for a beach holiday only to get to your hotel and find out that this is not a 4-star hotel? In fact, they're making you wait an hour every day to even get breakfast. There's dirt on the floor in your bathroom. The service is terrible. They don't even have drinks that taste good. In fact, there was no alcohol in any of these drinks. They're all super watery, right? To tap into some time that the person tried something and it didn't work, and they don't want to have that experience again. That is way more effective in getting people to take action, when you can kind of remind them, like, you don't want to have this happen, so come work with me. And I'll give you a really brief example of that. Let's see, who will play with me here? I'm looking at you, Julie. Julie, will you play with me a minute? Will you unmute? Okay, so Julie, if I said to you right now in your phone, there's a text telling you how you could potentially make another $10,000, would you get out of this webinar right now to go check that text?
It would probably be spam. So
Yep.
no.
No, okay. And
Delete
even
and
if you
block.
were like, even if there was like a 50% chance, like, oh, maybe it might have worked for someone, would you hang up right now to go check that?
Maybe.
You don't sound super motivated.
Well, you know,
Well-
at risk of, you know, if this is the $1 million plan versus the $10,000 plan, there's a risk reward in signing off here and accepting there.
There we go. Thank you. So you're not going to make this move towards that potential pleasure. All right. Now, how about if I tell you, Julie, that there's another text in your phone? It's from your bank, and it's telling you that someone just withdrew $30,000 from your bank account.
Oh,
Would
yeah,
you hang up right now to go find out what happened?
you bet.
Thank you. I rest my case. Thanks for playing with me. That is loss aversion. And this can definitely make you another $100,000, because I see over and over again people who are not trained in sales focusing on those benefits. The truth is, when you are selling to someone, they are kind of discounting everything you say by about 50%, right? Well, you're trying to sell me something. They may or may not believe it. See how Julie was like, it might work, it might not work. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing. So let's keep that in mind when we're selling. All right, I'm going to keep us moving. Secret number 3, helping your client to see what will happen in the future. This comes straight out of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. It's called future pacing, and that you can Google. It's helping your client to see what could happen if they worked with you. People tend to be very bad at imagining a future past a few days out. So if you can develop this skill of taking your client by the hand virtually or on the phone, or have your meeting with them in person, it's even better. But you can do this on the phone or on Zoom, and saying something like, let's see, who am I going to pick on? Luann, right? So Luann, it's now July 17th. Oops. It's now July 17th. If by September 17th, 3 months from now, you had all the skills you needed to get on every sales call feeling super confident, and you closed 5 more deals at 20,000 each, how would that feel? You can unmute to play with me a minute.
It would feel great.
It would feel great. And what would you do with that? Like, let's say if you close 5 more clients, what's a client worth to you roughly?
50,000.
Okay, so that's pretty easy math. 5 times 50, 250,000. What would you be doing on September 17th if you had just made another 250,000?
Probably going out and having a glass of wine and celebrating. Very nice.
Awesome. And who else would that impact in your life?
My husband.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
so?
I would bring him along for that glass of wine.
Awesome. Anything else you'd change? Would you book a vacation? Would you hire a virtual assistant? Anything else?
Probably scaling up to be able to support the additional clients. So yes, hiring a virtual assistant and bringing that along. Absolutely.
And how would that feel if it was September 17th and you had an extra 250,000 in the bank account?
I feel like I have a lot of work to do to prepare for those extra clients.
True. But how would it feel like emotionally?
Emotionally, I feel very good. It'd be self-reinforcing to feel confident to just, why stop at those 5 and keep going beyond that?
Totally. Thank you for playing with me.
Sure.
That is what that looks like. That is future pacing. I just did it. It's not complicated, but if you don't do it, then the person has trouble imagining, oh, if I invest this money, even if it's just to buy a purse, right? That's investing money. If you're a coach, investing to work with you, that's investing money. What's on the other side of that? So mastering that skill is hugely valuable. And hey, it has a name. What's it called? Wait, it's future pacing. We already did that one. All right, let's go to 4. So this is one of my favorites. This is what happens when people are about to make a big commitment. Let's say, Luann's clients, that they're spending $50,000. That's a lot of money. Here's what happens when you're making a big commitment. You start to feel like panicky, sometimes a little nauseous. Maybe think back to the last time you put down like $10,000 for something. Like I remember when I first had to send my kids to summer camp, my 2 boys, and it was like $8,000. Are you kidding me? I'm going to spend $8,000 on camp. I mean, I think I broke out into a sweat. So try to think back to a time that you did that and how you felt. Did you feel a little queasy? Did you almost want to run from the room? That is called an amygdala hijack. This is a term made famous by Daniel Goleman, who wrote the famous book about EQ, emotional intelligence. And there's basically a little group of neurons at the back of your brain that moderates fight, flight, or freeze. And this was developed in ancient times to keep us from getting, bowled over or run over by a woolly mammoth on the tundra. So the problem is there may not be a woolly mammoth charging at us on the tundra anymore, but when something seems to threaten our stability, or we have to make a big decision that's going to be a big change in our life, the amygdala kicks in, and it's called an amygdala hijack because it will literally stop you in your tracks. That's why it's a hijack. You were having this great, I'm sure one of you's had this experience. You're having a great conversation with a client. Maybe they got on the phone like, oh, I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been waiting for this for weeks. And then you get to the end where it's like, okay, well, let's do this. And they're like, I'm so glad we had this time. I need to think about it. When is the next one? Or, oh, wow, okay, 8,000. Yeah, I didn't know it was going to be that much. That is the amygdala hijack. And once you recognize it, the reason this can make you another $100,000 is that you won't take it personally. The reason I had you think about when was the last time you did it is I do it all the time. I went and signed up for Equinox, had a total amygdala hijack in the office of the membership guy. I was like, wait, I'm locked in for a year at how much? And I started making excuses and whatnot. And by the way, he was not trained in sales and I walked out of there. And I always use that as an example in some of my other sales training because he could have totally locked me in if he knew how to handle the amygdala hijack. So knowing it's happening helps to a degree because you don't take it personally. Then sales training can help you get the tools to coach the person through that hijack so you don't lose the client there. But be on the lookout for that now. And our last one is status quo bias. So we all hate change. Nobody wants to change how they do things. You want to make your coffee the same way every day. You want to have all of your things in the same place in your room where you can find them in your closet. I mean, who rearranges their shoes every minute? Nobody, right? You want to know right where they are. And I'm a change coach, right? My entire job is helping people to change. I hate change. I don't want to change anything ever. So that is called status quo bias. And that is how every single one of your customers feel. So once you understand that, then you can be much more intentional about learning the tools to help them give up the status quo. It's a big thing that we're asking them to do because whatever they've been doing it for weeks or months or years, right? Who thinks that when someone gets on the phone with them, it's the very first thing they've done to try to solve this problem? Probably no one, right? Breen, when people call you or get in touch with you, did they wake up that morning thinking, oh, I should try to get on a board? Are you like the very first thing they do? You can unmute.
I hope that it gets there.
Right, true. But I would say probably what do they do first? Do they maybe Google? Do they ask someone? What do they do?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of word of mouth and a lot of conversations with someone who's similarly situated or has a similar need. And then that leads them. Yeah,
that's right. And so mainly when people have a problem they're trying to solve, like how am I going to get on a board? How can I get more fit? How can I find the right interior designer? They start by Googling or asking friends, just exactly like Breen said. By the time they're on a call with you, that problem has gotten acute enough that they're ready to solve it. And here's the rub. If you don't know how to help them get over their status quo bias and use some of the tools I was talking about with these secrets, you are basically teeing them up for the next person who does have these tools. And especially in this shaky economy, it's one of the most important things we can do is learn how to sell. Because if you just talk to them about all the problems and you don't know how to close them, then the very next person they talk to will close them. And it's not because their products or services are better than yours, it's just because they know how to sell. So that is my little warning. That's my loss aversion warning. Don't lose your clients to people who are not as good as you just because you don't know how to sell. That's one of the main things that got me to take sales training. All right, so let's do a quick recap and then we're going to open it up to questions. So want to make sure that you're coming at everything from this attitude of serving, not selling. Don't just sell the benefits. Make sure they see what's the pain they're moving away from, the loss aversion. Use future pacing. Help them see what's possible with your help and working together. If they often do, especially if you have a higher priced item, they have an amygdala hijack, it's not about you. Help them through that with tools that I can teach you or you can learn in any sales program. And last but not least, when you're closing, remember that they have a status quo bias and they will want to keep everything the same. Again, nothing to do with you or your products or services. So looking at this, I would love you to put in the chat, which is the one that was like most surprising to you or you think could make you that next $100,000? I'm curious which of these stood out as like, oh yeah, I gotta think about that or learn more of that. Learn more about that. We have about 5 more minutes, Breen. How are we doing on time?
Yeah, no, I think we carved out till 12:45 for this
Oh,
event.
beautiful. Thank you. I thought it was 30 minutes for some reason. Great.
So,
we'll have lots of time for questions and things.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually I did have a question. Is now the right
time? Let me just get through the PowerPoint and then you'll be the first one. Is that all right? Awesome. Rachel, what do we got in the chat?
I'm seeing loss aversion, probably the most, but I'm seeing also amygdala hijack, serving, not selling, and status quo bias, loss aversion, future pacing. So a little bit of everything, but I would say loss aversion is probably the most common that I'm seeing. Oh,
awesome. Thank you. Well, since I just found out we have a couple more minutes, do you guys want the equinox story? You want the equinox story? It's a good one. Okay. It really illustrates loss aversion. So it'll be short. So for many years, I went to the YMCA, partly out of like I'm a New Yorker. Like, I don't need to go to the fancy gym. Like, I just go to the YMCA, right? I'm like lifting weights with all these dudes, and I was totally fine there. But then after a while, I was like, you know what? The gym is like my oasis. Like, I have 2 kids. I'm working all the time. Like, I want to upgrade. I want to go to Equinox. So I went to Equinox. I got a full tour. It was beautiful. They have like eucalyptus infused towels. Like, who's been to Equinox or like has a membership? Any hands going up? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, I might be alone here, but not everyone's on camera. So anyway, get this whole tour, private trainers, eucalyptus infused towels. What else did they have? State-of-the-art equipment. The temperature was just perfect. So I go into the office of Chris, who's giving me the tour, and he sits me down and he's like, okay, well, let's get you signed up. You know, I think at the time it was like $230 a month. I think it's up to 280 or 300 now. So it wasn't even really about the money. It was really status quo bias started kicking in when I sat in his chair, and I was like, I don't know, like, if I come to Equinox, do I have to like put on makeup and look good every time? Because like everyone's here all fancy. Like at the Y, I could just show up, you know? And then I was thinking, you know, it's in the basement. Like, am I gonna like going into the basement? The Y has like light streaming in. And so he was like, okay, you ready? Let's get you signed up. And I was like, I don't know, I love the tour. Thank you. It's so great to know you guys are right here, and I live nearby. So I'll just come back and, you know, sign up another day. But thank you so much, Chris. And he's like, okay, well, I'll be here when you're ready. I was like, okay. Walked out, went upstairs. Who thinks I ever signed up for Equinox? No. How many emails did I get from Chris? About 30. Right? Hi, you still thinking about signing up? Hey, you want to come back in? But you know what? When you have that person in your seat, like Chris had me in my seat, that's when you need to know how sales works. All Chris had to do was say, so where are you now at the gym? Oh, I'm at the YMCA. Oh, okay. And what don't you like about it? Well, you know, in the summer, it's always hot. And in the winter, it's often cold. And I noticed you guys have these like private trainers. They don't have trainers there. Oh, okay, cool. And what else do you like about it? Like what bothers you about the Y? Well, sometimes I feel like, you know, that's my one place to go relax and take time for me. And it's not like nice, you know, like this is really beautiful here. That would have been all he would have had to do, right? Loss aversion. I didn't want to lose the opportunity to have all these nice things and get me out of my status quo bias, because it kicked in right away. Oh, I'm used to going to the Y. Oh, I know the way there. I don't have to put on makeup. What if I have to put on makeup? That was the perfect illustration of what not to do and such easy things that he could have done. I did, about a year later, wind up signing up for Equinox, but nothing to do with Chris. All right, so now we're going to get back to our little PowerPoint. And if you learned anything from that story, throw it in the chat. I'd be curious. Especially if it's something that you can use in your business. I really want all of this to be immediately applicable to you. Like, are you being Chris sometimes? Are you letting people just walk out of your office because like, oh, well, they said they didn't want to? If you see anything good, Rachel, let me know. I'm not going to look in the chat because I'll get all distracted. All right, so I've created a method to help women learn how to sell. And I told you my not so secret agenda is that you want to learn a sales method. I studied 5 or 6 methods and took the best of them and put them into this very simple to learn method called the Sales Cure. So it's an acronym. It stands for Connect, Uncover, Recognize, Explain. And these are the 4 things that you have to get right in exactly that order on every sales call or meeting. And so just in real short, connecting is where you have that kind of personal connection. You make sure that you have a rapport as human beings. Uncover is where you spend about 85% of every sales call or meeting, really peeling back the layers of the onion and figuring out what the problem is. You saw how with, I can't remember who it was, maybe Luann, I was like, well, what else? What else, right? What else would you feel? Who else would that impact? That's all part of the uncover. The recognize is when you get to show up as the expert you are. Oh, those are your problems? Okay, well, would you like to hear how I've helped other people with those same problems? And suddenly they're like, yes, I would. And they're leaning in. And then finally, you get to do what is the part we all love, explaining your products and services. So let me ask you this. The untrained salesperson, which of these do you think they lead with? And I told you it has to happen in this order. Which one do you think the untrained salesperson leads with? And you can let me know, Rachel, what comes up in the chat.
Explain. Yeah, several explains, a bunch. Everyone's saying explain.
Okay, so you guys know what the problem is. Yes, and it's so tempting, right, to start sales calls with, let me tell you all about us. And by the way, now that you know this, you can't unknow it, and it's going to drive you crazy when people try to sell to you like this. That's like the hardest thing for me is when people try to sell me starting with E, because it's like, why are you telling me all about your products and services? You haven't connected with me as a human being. You don't know what my problems are. You don't even know if your solution is the problem, solves the problem I have. So I don't want anyone doing that. Even if you don't take my sales program, please don't start with the E. But if you do want to keep learning, these are my recommendations. Pick a method and master it. Mine is an affordable, easy to use and easy to learn method, but there are others out there. I shared some at the beginning. Learn how to overcome objections. That's where most people get tripped up. That's when you say the price or tell them what's going to happen next, and they have all of a sudden all these tough questions and reasons it's not going to work. Practice this stuff. You cannot just think about it. You have to really put it into practice, even if it's with an intern, if it's with someone in your office, if it's with your mom, your child, I don't care, but you have to do role play. And that's one of the reasons we do our programs, to give women opportunities to do that role play. And then closing is its own art. It's really its own set of skills, closing, because, you know, it's almost like it's all fun and games up until the close, right? Who doesn't like talking to their customers about what their problems are and exploring all the things you could do together? But then suddenly it's the close. And that's where a lot of people fall down. And that's part of why in my program, we have that as its own separate section of the program, so that you can really become what we like to call a master closer. We don't want you to be one of those people who can get the meeting, but can't get the deal. So, we're not doing breakouts on this. Hang on, because we don't have time. But I did want to tell you about an opportunity to work with us. On July 26th, we're launching a $50,000 in 21 days challenge called the $50,000 challenge, where we will teach you in 3 weeks' time all the skills you need to make $50,000. And we've had women who make that amount during the course. Our promise is you will either make it during the course, or you will learn the skills to make your next 50,000, or we give your money back. We've been doing this for 2 years now. We have incredible success stories of women who close $60,000 deals, $100,000 deals, like right after learning the method. So it's not like you have to practice it for a year for it to work. It's very quick uptake. And we have a special offer for you guys, since you are part of the fourth floor, soon to be the fourth effect, which is that instead of paying $1,499, which is the price that anybody off the street pays, you have the partner offer of $999. Rachel, I think you have a little link you can throw in the chat there if someone would like to take us up on that. We're making that available for the next 24 hours for everyone in the fourth floor community. But if you wake up 2 days from now and are like, I think I need sales training, you just lost a big account, or you felt like, oh no, that person had an amygdala hijack, I didn't know what to do about it. If it's 2 days from now, it's going to be $1,499. So please, if you're even having an inkling of taking it, save the $500 and join us for this little 4-week sprint where there'll be 10 to 15 women learning how to sell with me. There's 4 live sessions. And if you're someone who likes to read, just take a screenshot of this, because I'm not going to go over the whole thing. Every single session has a different theme so that you can master all the parts of selling. And you'll be learning from some videos that we have in a portal in a DIY program I have called the Sales Cure. So this is a chance to go through the DIY videos with an expert sales trainer and coach and other women just like you in a context very much like this, and make your next 50,000. And like we were saying with Luann and Julie, ultimately your next 250,000. So I'm going to turn us over to Q&A now, and let's start with Breen's question. We can take questions about what I've shared. We can take questions about the $50,000 in 21 days challenge if you're curious about that. Everything's fair game. Breen, why don't you start?
Okay, thank you, Julia. And actually, before I ask my question, I was just looking for that link to take people directly to take advantage, but I'm having, if you have it handy, if you wouldn't mind, Rachel, maybe putting it in the chat, that would be great, because inside our platform, people can get there, but I'm just having a difficulty sharing that link. So I just wanted to say
problem.
that.
We're happy to help with that.
Okay, great. And then so my questions, and I actually noticed a couple of questions in the chat that were kind of related to this.
Yeah. Oh, wait, and Breen, before you do, can we take a quick picture? Because people might have to drop off. I'm sure not everyone can stay for everything. We always like to take a picture at all events that we do, because that way we get to say we knew you when. We knew you when you weren't yet a sales master in this case. And I'll share it with you, of course, Breen, so that we can both share it to social media. And you're also going to inspire a lot of other women to learn about selling. We're really trying to get more women interested in learning how to sell. If you can come on camera, please come on. We're going to take the picture. Here we go. Okay. I got it. Thank you so much. All right.
So we're good.
Great.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I was wondering about, okay, so very specifically the future pacing and amygdala hijack. So do you have just like very succinct, like very practical, okay, so I guess starting with amygdala hijack, just how do you calm someone down, get them off the ledge? And then with the future pacing, is it more about you telling them about what your product will bring them in the future?
Let me take the second one first, because I want to make sure there are no misunderstandings. The future pacing is more about what will their life look like after they have completed your program or bought your product or service, with less emphasis on the selling, right? Because notice that when I was talking to Luann or Julie, I forget who, I wasn't like, well, after I've taught you sales, how are you going to feel? After you completed my program, how are you going to feel? It was more just like, okay, it's 3 months from now. You have another 250,000 in the bank. How does that feel? That's the future pacing. And by the way, you can also use it for the negative thing they want to move away from, right? This loss aversion. If in let's say you sell websites, you help people redo their websites or create their websites. Rachel and I, were looking at one of my websites recently, and I was like, oh, that's kind of outdated. So someone got on a call with me who wanted to sell me on a redo of my website. And they said, well, let me ask you, Julia, like, if you don't fix the website, like, let's say 3 months from now, what's the worst thing that'll happen? I'm like, well, I guess a bunch of people would come on the site and not buy the product. Oh, okay. Well, how much is the product? $2,000. How many clients do you think you might lose? Like if you don't redo the site? Oh gosh, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Well, at least 10. I mean, that's at the minimum. Oh, okay. So let's see, 10 times. Oh yeah. So 20,000. Wow. Well, you know what? I would charge you 1,500 to redo the website. So if you want to get started, we can get that done in the next month. And then 3 months from now, you'll have 10 or 20 or 50 new clients instead of losing the 20,000. That's a trained salesperson at work.
Got it. And then the amygdala hijack.
Yes. The question was what? I forgot.
Just, I guess, like, totally understand the concept, but then if you're watching it happen, like, I guess you wait until.
Oh, yes. What do you do? I remember the question. So any moms, raise your hand if you're a mom. Okay. All right. All right. Rebecca, how old? Wait, no, we're not going to do the age. Here we go. Rebecca, we're going to illustrate what you do. Okay. With an amygdala hijack. So when your child, can I have a name?
Grace.
When she was about 2, and if you ever gave her pots and pans to play with, and then she was like banging on them and it was super, super loud, and you're like, oh no, I have a conference call. Would you be like, Grace, stop banging on those pans? No. What would you do? How would you get her to stop?
I'd move the pans.
Yep. And what else? What's she going to do now if you move the pans?
I'd give her something else to do.
Like what?
Something in another room that would be quieter.
Thank you. Do you know what that's called in parenting? It's called
diversion.
Yeah, redirecting. I've heard that term. Yes. Thank you. Perfect illustration, Rebecca. That's your answer, Breen. You literally redirect because their brain is freaking out. You don't say to them, oh, you're having an amygdala hijack, obviously, right? But you just redirect. And the best thing to redirect with is like either some loss aversion or some future pacing benefits. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the high level. Of course, there's lots of other like tricks and tips that you learn in sales training, but that's the gist of it. And again, I want you guys to come away with enough concepts that you can start using this right away. But if any of you are feeling like, oh, I didn't even know there were all these things, this is the tip of the iceberg. So please consider joining me for this sales sprint where I can teach you all of the tips and tricks, and you can actually make another $50,000, $100,000 in your business. All right, let's get one more question. How do we do this? I'm going to volunteer someone. Okay, no, Angela's going to jump in. Hi, Angela. Can you unmute?
Oops. Sorry, I started talking. So when you talk about the serving, not selling, right? So I've, tried to connect and uncover, but in the uncovering, I ultimately start to try and solve the problem. So like, how do you just kind of just uncover it, but not give the answer?
Yeah, so we actually have a term for that in my sales training. It's called giving out Band-Aids. So this is something to be avoided at all costs, because here's what happens, back to the mom metaphors. When my kids had a boo-boo or whatever, and they would come to get a Band-Aid, if you gave them like a Curious George or like a Diego, Band-Aid, they would be so excited and they would just run off to put on the Band-Aid. They're like, no, I don't need a snack. I don't need a bathroom break. I just want to go put on this Band-Aid. So your clients are the same. If you start giving them like little things that they can solve their problem with along the way, guess what they can't wait to do, Angela? Get off the phone with you and go put on that Band-Aid. Go try it out. But here's the rub, is that if someone came to you with like a huge gash in their arm, right, and they need stitches, would you give them a Band-Aid? Would that be helping them? No, you'd be like, oh my God, we got to get you to the emergency room. You need stitches. Your clients usually need stitches, right? They don't need the Band-Aid. In fact, the Band-Aid is not serving them. It makes you feel better in the moment. And I think some of this is a bit gendered. Like I know as women, we help, right? We want to solve. It's like, oh, I can help you with that. Well, of course you can. And they should pay you for it, right? But if you keep giving out the Band-Aids, they're just going to run off and do the free stuff, and they're not going to work with you. So that's one of the big things we teach in my sales programs, is how to, be helpful and take them through that process, but without giving out any Band-Aids, so that it all culminates in them saying yes and getting the stitches. I hope that helps. Awesome.
Yes.
All right, let's take one more and then we'll hop off. You guys have been awesome. And if you have any questions for Rachel about sales programs or whatever, just, direct chat her. I thought Luann had a little hand going up there. No. Okay. Anyone else? Rebecca.
Angela, just to tie on to Angela's question, I think that's a really, really good question, Angela, because, secret number one is to serve, right? So it's a subtle, like you're unpacking and serving them by understanding where they are in their business, or, what the problem is, depending on what your solution is, but without giving them a sense of what you've done for other clients. I think this is a great solution. I found that to be really helpful, because then they can picture, oh, that could work for me too, but you're not putting a Band-Aid on their problem.
Yes, great suggestion. I love that, Rebecca. Have you had sales training, Rebecca?
Just in life. Yeah.
Yes, and like just from doing
I've been doing it. Yeah, a long time.
Yes, we certainly learn a lot of things along the way. And that is one of the reasons I went out and got trained in sales, is I was like, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm not quite sure why. And now that I've done sales training, I know why every time. Like I never have to get off a call like, oh, what happened there? I always know. And anyone who can work with me, I have all the tools to close them. And that feels really good. Back to what you were saying about the serving, not selling. It's counterintuitive, right? Because we feel like we're serving them when we give them this Band-Aid. But back to the, gash metaphor, you're not. You're preventing them from getting the stitches, right? It's the opposite of serving. And that's why we have to learn how to hold back and not do that. That you want to do the bigger serving, which is I can coach you through your fears, getting out of status quo bias, right? I know how to ask about the YMCA, right? So that we can get you signed up. By the way, my life probably would have been better if Chris had sold me on the Equinox, right? It took another like many, many months for me to switch to Equinox, and then I loved it. So that's your clients, right? Like, they'll be better off if they work with you. So why not just learn how to close them? Why tee them up for the next person who just studied sales when you didn't? Anyway, you guys have been amazing. This was so much fun. Breen, thank you for the opportunity, and Rachel for all the support, and Sarah, Rebecca, Luann, Angela, Julie, Barbara, thank you for staying till the end. It was really fun to have this conversation, and I hope I'll get to see you either in the 4th floor. We are members, so I'll see you in there, or on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. I have some free shorts all about selling, some YouTube shorts on my YouTube channel, which is just Julia Pimsleur Coach. So
yes, amazing. Thank you so much, Julia.